Hello there. So for just a change, I thought this is sparked by somebody saying something to me on the channel. I made a comment. It was Wouter, the Highlander, and he said, "I don't think you ever say anything serious. I didn't know you could be serious," he said to me. And I was like, and I find that funny, something serious. But it made me think about something, and people just genuinely think all I do is just make stupid comments, and that's the only thing. That's just basically it. He's just going to come on, he's going to make a sarcastic comment, and that's the sum total of who I am, full stop. And it's not, it's a lot more to it than that. And it made me think about something else, and it made me think about the German pilot who killed everyone on the plane, Andreas Lubitz. And it made me think about how people deal with depression, as the title of this video is probably going to be. And it made me think, why are people making this out to be such a strange, him to be such a like because he had depression, that's what he was going to do. You know what I mean? And it was like, you know, I've lived with it forever, and it's like the majority of people who are depressed don't think, right, everyone's coming with me. When you have a depressing or a depressive episode, you don't, the last thing you're thinking about is hating anyone except possibly yourself. And I just found it weird that they've kind of made him out to be a monster. I mean, they've kind of simply sort of said, well, he was depressed, so that's what he's going to do, isn't it? And I was thinking, no, you really, there's far more to it than that. Clearly, there must be. You know, and I've not followed it super close, as some people may be able to go into that. But from my own point of view, and like with many other people that deal with depression, the problems that you have, they don't really have a lot to do with hurting anyone else. He's a very, that pilot's a very rare example of someone with more than one issue, more than one mental health issue, quite clearly. Because he researched suicide. But to think that you would take 150 people with you, it's not a typical case of someone with depression at all. You have nothing against anyone when you're depressed. You have nothing against anyone but yourself. And I thought I would talk about that, because this seems to think everybody just thinks I'm just one single sort of mindset, and that's just clown around saying stupid things. And there's not. There's a lot more in there. And there's obviously that illness, that mental health issue side that is sometimes extremely difficult to live with. And I thought I'd make something about it for once, just to show people that no, it's not all just stupid comments. And I'm sure there'll be people who watch this and go, yeah, I'm fooling around here, but no, it's very real. But for me, you know, like anybody else who operates to a certain degree, thousands of people in this country operate with mental health issues, and they're perfectly reasonable, productive people that love the family and whatever, but they have that side that they have to deal with. So they have to cover for it a lot of the times to get by, but also not to have people question them. And that happens when people find out about you. They go, oh, right, this, Jesus, we can't trust you, or oof, you shouldn't do that because, you know, you might have a mental breakdown. And you know, those things can happen. You can have a mental breakdown. But for most people with mental health issues, a lot of those sick parts of their life, they keep away from everyone, for themselves and for other people, because people don't understand. So people make assumptions, like they seem to have done with the pilot, or the co-pilot, if you will. And that was the thing I was trying to get at. You know, I've known this since I was a kid, but never knew what it was then. And then as a teenager, you sort of think this is hormones, but then when you become an adult, you realise that you do have problems, and you do have a mental health issue that is different to to how everybody else gets by, and people come at you with crap all like, oh, you're just sad, you just cheer up, and like, you see my comments on channels and stuff, that's still me, and that's still me having a great deal of fun with things. But the other side of me is, another part of me is that problem, and you do your best to cope, and some days you don't. And I would have to say, recently, I don't really think I have. People go, oh, you need to see the doctor, and something, and there's something else again. People say, when you speak to your friends or when you see a doctor, and sometimes you think, with mental health issues, they're the last people you want to speak to. You don't, in fact, half the time, you don't speak to anyone. You just you operate on an even lower level, whereby you just go, I'm dealing with this. This is pain. I want to share this with anyone, and that's unfortunately part of the life for people with mental health issues. You end up going, right, this is mine. Not that people can't empathise, get the word, and a lot of people will sympathise. And by the way, I've not made this for sympathy. I'm not interested in anyone pat me on the back and go, get well soon. But it's all yours, you know what I mean? It's all yours, and it's like, well, it's in my head, so I'll have to deal with it. And that's what you try and do. And for most parts you kind of do, but you always have events, and you always have triggers and things that happen. I won't go into all them, but that's what happens, and you live with that. But that pilot, there's a lot more to that than simply just depression there. That's a huge thing. Don't get me wrong, I have sympathy with everybody who's lost loved ones on that plane, and the people who died, but I have sympathy with him too, because part of his life was clearly depression. But to do that is just not really something you would say. It's very particular to a certain sort of mental problem there. I couldn't even begin to pretend to understand that one as much. But when they just talk about the depression, you're just like, please, try and find out a bit more about what you're talking about. So there you go. Something I thought I'd tell you. Feel free to ask me anything. And if you have anybody else in your family who suffers any kind of mental health issues, or you're worried about someone, maybe you could talk to them, maybe you can't, maybe you could have an ear out for them and listen to them. You never know, you might be able to help somebody. That'll do. Bye.